We're excited to be here. It's our first Final Four in quite some time for UCLA. We're proud to represent our institution. We're excited to play Ohio State. We know they're a fantastic volleyball team, one of the best serving teams in the country, if not the best serving team in the country. And so we know that we're going to have an incredible battle on our hands, and hopefully we'll get out and have a good practice and get ourselves prepared to go out and play our very best on Thursday evening.
Coach, Vinny Lopes here from Off the Block. You played Ohio State in this venue to start the season. Was there a hunch when you scheduled that match in the offseason that you might be seeing them again in May in the same venue?
Certainly there was the thought about it. It's hard to predict. And I don't know that at the beginning of the season that I would have predicted that we would have been here. At that point of the season, we were experimenting with a 6-2 and trying to figure it out, and we weren't sure how that was going to go. Certainly we were aware that Ohio State had the chance to win the MIVA and had a lot of good, young, talented players. The whole premise of doing the Pac-12 Big Ten Challenge over the next few years was to get into the venue where we were going to be hosting the national championship. So next year it'll be at Ohio State, the year after at UCLA. So the idea of getting into the venue and playing where the national championships were going to be held was certainly the concept behind it, and we're excited to be back.
And looking at your team, I know we talked a little bit about the 6-2, but beyond that, what's been the biggest difference from your team when you first played them to now?
Well, we have some different guys on the team, and certainly, I mean, that was really in the early period of trying to figure this out. And one of the things that I thought we did, just potentially at times a little uncomfortable for me, is let these guys just go play ball and create a little bit, particularly with Hagen and Micah, just being able to say, hey, what can we do with this offense, because it does allow for so much more flexibility. Historically, I've been a pretty big systems guy, so for me to just kind of say, hey, just go mess around, you know, is a little bit foreign to me. And literally during that time period when we were here in early January, that's what we were doing. We were messing around. So I like to think that we've formalized some structure to what we've been doing, figured out what was working, what wasn't. Certainly these guys are always still tinkering a little bit, and at this time of year I'm usually trying to back them off. We can tinker a little bit next fall, a little bit more, and just stick to what we know and our systems that we've developed over the year.
Coach, speaking of the Gordon Ruska from Saturday Night Times, speaking of the rematch with Ohio State, how useful is it at all that you face them in basically the first week of the season?
I think it is useful. First, it's useful just to play in the venue where it's going to be hosted, so we're a little bit more familiar with the environment, getting around town. It's visually familiar to us, and I think that's really important. In terms of Ohio State as a team, they're much improved as well, so I think you're seeing two different teams. Certainly some similarities. They have some great players, and we had some opportunity to look at some tape and see what they did versus us the first time, and they were effective. They beat us in the first set, and we were lucky. We actually got a call to go our way in the second set. We probably should have been down 0-2. So we know that. We have a ton of respect for what Pete has done with his team and the team they have on the floor. So we know we're in for another battle tomorrow.
Mitch, you guys had an opportunity to be in the stands, watch the Ohio State-George Mason match. What did you take away from watching the Buckeyes last night?
Just kind of go off what Coach said earlier. I mean, they're a great serving team. Miles Johnson serves the ball well, Sherzin. I mean, all those guys come out in the back line and just bomb away. So we got to come in tomorrow, really be focused, try and get in system as much as we can, and we got to take advantage of the opportunities when we can transition out and score some reels on them.
And talking about serving, I'll open this up to all the players, whichever one of you wants to take it. You know, a lot was made about your guys' serving game in your last match against BYU. Don't need to remind you, 27 errors. Where is the confidence in your guys' serving game right now?
I think it's still 100% there. I don't think that our confidence is wavered at all.
Yeah. Jake, for you this season, obviously sophomore season moving on, and what's been the biggest adjustment or development that you feel you've made in your game from your freshman year to your sophomore year?
I think I'm just a little bit more comfortable out there on the court. You know, just coming in freshman year, I think I just had a lot to learn, both on the court and off. So I think this year it's just more, I'm just going out there and playing loose, playing with my team.
And Micah, for you, it's been your freshman season. What's been the biggest adjustment for you transitioning from the high school club game in Hawaii to the college game?
Definitely the time commitment and the grind of the season. I played multiple sports in high school, but it was nothing like college sports. You're there every day. You're lifting weights every day. Constantly thinking about it, constantly with your teammates. and just the overall just wear and tear on your body of just going out every day and competing against not guys that just want to play for fun anymore. You know, you're going against guys that do this. Some of them to do it for paying their college tuition. Some of them I've been doing it for their whole life, and they're unreal players. So I think just being around the best of the best, especially at being at UCLA and Coach Sproul, it's definitely eye-opening, and it's definitely a tough season to make it through.
Now, I want to ask you did make number 2 on SportsCenter for your play against Long Beach State, jumping over a chair. What did Coach Barras say to you after jumping over a chair? Did he tell you never do that again, or was he okay with it?
We haven't quite talked about that. Yeah, I'm not sure. Hopefully he's okay with that.
So will you try to elevate your game at all, though? Maybe jump over a Prius or something like that? So.
Something of the sort. Yeah,
Yeah.
we have something lined up. I definitely think we have something lined up, yeah.
Yeah.
Mitch, when you were here in January, I asked you about the possibility of coming back. Now that you are here, close to home, do you feel any kind of extra internal pressure that you have a lot of family and friends in the bleachers?
Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of family coming up tomorrow. Some friends have texted me and told me they're going to come. And it's something I try not to think about a whole lot because that's just outside noise that you can't really pay attention to. I mean, when you're in a Final Four, you got to really focus on the task at hand. And right now, that task is beating Ohio State on the first point. And it's what I'm trying to focus on right now.
Hagen, for you, obviously you come from a legendary volleyball family. I want to ask for you, first off, what is that like for you coming to UCLA knowing that your dad is a Hall of Fame volleyball player, and how have you been able to, is that something you embrace? Is that something you necessarily don't like to think about? How do you handle that?
Well, growing up, he never really had to push me into volleyball or even UCLA. I was UCLA all the way for me. I loved it from the beginning. And then I haven't really felt any pressure from his status as a volleyball player. I look up to him. I want to try to play like him because he was very good in his time, and just do the best I can, whatever I can do myself.
And just out of curiosity, has he given you any advice going into the NCAA tournament or anything from his days playing in these events?
Nothing really from his days, but he sees how our team is playing, and if he'll say a little something there, but he doesn't want to get too involved and be like, I guess, a burden on me to think too much or anything like that.
Well, I want to ask you also, talking about your play this season, the 6'2", what's been the biggest adjustment for you playing a 6'2"? Because I'm sure that's something that you probably haven't played a whole lot in your career before this year.
Actually, I ran a 6'2" all the way up until college.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, pretty much every year. The biggest thing getting back into hitting for me was a little difficult at the higher level after not hitting for 2 years. And so adjusting to that, adjusting to the bigger players, the limited range they give you with a big block, that's been tough.
Coach, I want to ask you, and you played in the 1990s with UCLA, and so much was made in the 90s about that UCLA swagger when they walked in to an arena. How does this team compare in terms of that swagger? Because I know you guys have one. Do you feel that it's about the same level of swagger? Or?
I'm just laughing because they all heard I played in the 90s. It seems like an old man. The swagger was definitely there. We'd like to develop it. Part of me feels like one of the things I wanted to see in this move back to UCLA was, could we replicate the days from the past? Could we become a team that's in the Final Four every single year, competing for championships and maybe winning them every couple years like we were doing, having every class win a championship? Is that possible now? I don't really know. There's more good players that play. There's more teams that are competing for championships. But I still love UCLA and what it represents and the support that we get and the experience that we can provide our student athletes. I think it's second to none. And so if we can continue to recruit well, train well, I think we can come to more of these tournaments, and the more that we're at, the swagger will come back. Mostly, I want to make sure that we play a certain style of play and have a good idea about how we want to mentally prepare for every volleyball match. That isn't necessarily about swagger, it's about how you play every point. And so I think that's a constant dialogue for where we want to take this team down the road.
Yeah. And Mitch, I want to ask you, because I believe you were a senior in high school or a freshman coming into UCLA when Coach Farad took the job at UCLA. What was your reaction kind of a high school kid when you heard that Coach Frog was going to UCLA?
Yeah, funny story. I actually met Coach Sproul at Irvine. I went on an unofficial visit there and had a great conversation with him. And during that same trip I was out in California, I went to UCLA, and I had mentioned to my club coach at the time that if Sproul would ever get the job at UCLA, like that would be a dream place to play volleyball. I mean, with one of the best coaches in the world, one of the top universities in the world. I mean, you put those two things together, and being in Los Angeles, can't really get much better than that. And whenever I actually called him to see if he had made his decision, and he said that he had, like, that day or like the day before, and I was like, holy crap, it's actually happening, like this thing's actually real. So I was pretty excited, you know, and I took some time. We figured out how to get myself there, and it's been awesome ever since.
Jake, I want to ask you, looking at Ohio State, obviously a strong serving team, what do you guys have to do to be prepared to handle the serves from Cesarian and Johnson and all those players?
I think we worked on it a lot this week. You know, we know what their serves are like and kind of where they go, so we just need to be able to go out there and just pass the ball. I mean, when they played George Mason, I think they did a really good job of passing their serves. So I think that's really the key, is to go out there with confidence and not be afraid of their serves and just be out there, stick them.
And Coach, follow up on that a little bit with Ohio State. You look at their stat line from last night. Johnson, Cesarian, both 40-plus attack attempts, and I think only one other player had double attack attempts. How does that change your preparation for a match, knowing that there's really probably only going to be two guys that are going to get the majority of their sets?
Well, I think playing throughout the course of the MPSF season, you play different teams that have different styles of play, certainly different numbers of guys and attempts, and so I think we're used to adjusting how we defend against different teams that bring different strengths. So I don't think this is going to be necessarily that big of an adjustment for us. Certainly last night, Ohio State didn't have Driss on the volleyball court. I'm sure he's going to be there on Thursday night, and that, of course, changes distribution numbers that may be what you saw on Tuesday night. So we know they're very capable of putting the ball away at every single one of their positions, and that will have to be pretty balanced and diligent and not overthink things too much and just play the game.
I'll open this up for all the players. First NCAA tournament experience, what's been the coolest part so far for you guys? Obviously, besides this news conference. But
I think, for me personally, getting UCLA back into the Final Four after a 10-year drought it's really cool to be a part of the tradition that brings it back. And then free stuff is pretty cool too.
yeah. Well, and hey, just follow up on that. I'm intrigued. How much is the drought? Because it's so rare for UCLA to go 5+ years without winning an NCAA championship. You're in about a 10-year drought. How much is the drought talked about just among the team and alums?
Prior to Coach Sproul, I'm not very sure, but when he came in, his goal was to change the whole attitude of the team and the culture of the team, to actually going for the goal to get back and get the championships instead of anything else, whatever is outside of volleyball. So as soon as he came in, I think the culture changed, and it's been one goal.
Final question from me, but I'll ask this because I know you guys are student athletes, beyond volleyball players. So what's been your favorite class this semester?
I'm taking a really interesting sociology class right now.
Political science class, actually, I took with both of these guys. Pretty
Yeah.
fun. That one was pretty good.
That was actually pretty interesting. I had to agree with Mike on that.
I'm in a forest ecosystems class. It's very cool.
I've been studying Ohio State like crazy.
Coach, I asked the same question to Alan Knipe earlier. With the broader perspective of the national program, what is your opinion of the state of the men's volleyball game in this country?
In this country, I think it's really good. I would still like to see a broader number of players playing at the collegiate level. We'd love to see continued growth. We'd love to see this tournament expand to 8 teams and more universities to add, just like Conference Carolinas. What a great thing for our sport. From a top-end talent perspective, I think we've done remarkably well. I think this quad has actually been a very pleasant surprise to see some of the youth and their impact they've had, and to be successful as they've had at that level. Micah Christensen coming in and setting this team from the sophomore year in college on, and Aaron Russell, Taylor. Now Thomas Jeschke leaving school early and having the experience he had this year at Wausogia, just incredible experience for him. So I think we have a number of good young players that could be in the program for a very long time, and I think that's really healthy and shows that the collegiate level here in the United States is developing players that can go and be successful immediately at the next level. And I think that's being noticed. There's been a number of coaches that have come to visit us at UCLA to kind of see what this is all about because of what they're observing about the development system in the United States of America. So I feel good about it. There's certainly a lot of work that can be done, but I'm happy with where we're at.
Do you wish that there was a major conference like Big Ten, Pac-12 that had men's volleyball that would give you guys representation in the NCAA?
No, yeah, for sure. I don't know exactly what the realities are. I don't necessarily know all the details of Title IX and how that impacts it. I mean, I really don't. But man, it would be great. It seems to be a natural for an Arizona State and Arizona to get volleyball. Obviously, JT Hatch is on our team. He's from Arizona. They have a natural talent base there. But I think right now, probably the greater reality is to have more D2 conferences come in, like Conference Carolinas. Obviously, there's been some discussions about the Big West becoming their own conference. I think that'd be great for the sport. Hopefully, some moves like that would actually expand the tournament to 8 teams, which is where I think it needs to be. I think it's a challenge for the number 1 and 2 teams at this tournament to not go out and compete on the floor like the other 4 teams did. That's a disservice to the number 1 and 2 seed teams. So I like everybody to play on equal footing once they get here.
Any other questions? Jake, Micah, Mitch, Hagen, Coach, good luck.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.